All right. Hi, guys. Thanks for joining us. We're talking with Universal Robots today, joined with Brian Connor, who's the Channel Development Manager based out of Chicago. He covers a few Midwestern states. We also have Joe Campbell, who's the Head of Marketing for North America based out of Michigan. Really appreciate you guys' time today. Brian, let's start with you. Where are you at, and what does a typical day look like for you?
Absolutely. First of all, thanks for having us on, Brian. We certainly appreciate it. Yeah, as you mentioned, I'm the channel development manager here based out of the Chicago area. Really, a typical day for me is working very closely with our distribution partners as well as our key systems integrators. I do have a number of those that I work with across my territory. I'm also kind of going along with them, hopping into plants. So I do spend a lot of time getting to interface with plant managers, operations managers, et cetera, of a lot of local Midwest manufacturing facilities. So really, when I'm not doing all that, I'm usually following up and seeing kind of where we're at on different projects and trying to just find the next person I can help automate.
Got it. Thanks. And you, Joe?
Yeah.
Well, I'm based in sunny Michigan, suburb of Detroit, and unlike Brian, who has an opportunity now to travel every now and then, the Universal marketing team is still pretty much on heavy lockdown. So I have a team scattered across the U.S., and we are all working from home and making the best of it. Our job has been complicated since the 6th of March by a need to immediately pivot and transition to digital marketing rather than the trade show experience that was such a key component of our marketing activities. So right now it's program after program, campaign after campaign, and kind of orchestrating the efforts of the whole team.
Got it. So speaking of the fun and interesting times we're in right now, how has UR navigated this first wave of COVID-19, and what are you guys seeing out there? Are things kind of getting back to normal, or what's going on?
Well, first of all, I think we did a very, very sound job of preparing for the pandemic. And in that regard, we were very much helped by our parent company, Teradyne. Teradyne is in the electronics test business, and they have a huge footprint in China and other Far East countries. And so they actually got a very, very close upfront look at the pandemic as it started to unfold. And they very wisely took a look and said, it's coming to the U.S., it's just a question of time. And so they really started making preparations. So Universal prepared. We actually went out to our supply chain. We secured supply from multiple vendors. We actually staged robots on all major continents that we're active in, because we weren't really clear what the shipping lanes were going to look like as the pandemic unfolded. So we were really well equipped on the manufacturing side. On the sales side, I think Brian can attest, it's been difficult, but it has not been impossible at all. There are many customers that are still making investments built around programs, and that's continuing. We, of course, like to see a little bit more volume, but it is continuing. We're also seeing a lot of investment from companies that are wrestling with the COVID crisis, and they're investing now in collaborative technology to do social distancing within their product lines, and we have some reshoring programs going on. And then finally, I think the other challenge we've seen is companies are really wrestling with flexibility. They're starting to realize that they have to build flexibility into their operations because as this recent chain of events has shown us, you can't rely on stability forever. And so we see a lot of interest and a lot of activity at that point.
Awesome. And Brian, can you attest that as well? Are you starting to see customers, wake up, and are you starting to get on the road a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. We're starting to see a lot more activity. I think, if anything, COVID has possibly started to get more companies considering automation. It's really starting to get to the point that people are calling in and just saying, look, I didn't really know that I needed this. I didn't know that, this was going to be such an important step for our organization. but with social distancing guidelines and such, people are realizing pretty quickly that, you could possibly place a cobot right in between two of your workers on a line, maintain the social distancing guidelines, and increase throughput through that. So more and more companies do seem to be opening back up. It's getting a little bit easier to go in and visit customers and get in there and really being able to walk a plant floor, talk to the product, or talk to the automation engineers, talk to the plant managers, and really just start diving into how we can help out. It's really starting to open up a lot of doors for us. So certainly seems as if right now anyways, knock on wood, that we're, starting to get into a little bit better position.
Good. Well, let's talk about the technology. Cobots have certainly been a hot trend in industrial automation recently. You guys started in 2008. It's been 12 years now. Can you guys talk about maybe how the technology has grown and adapted over those 12 years?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as you mentioned, 2008 is when Universal Robots produced the first commercially viable collaborative robot to hit the market. Since then, we've gone through several iterations of this cobot, all of them looking similar, but a lot of good changes under the hood. One of the, I guess, more landmark releases would have been the E-Series back in 2018. Really just improving the speed of the robot in terms of the bus speed, making the robot a lot quicker to react in terms of safety, adding different safety features. We're up to 17 different unique safety features on the E-Series robots now. We've integrated a force torque sensor into the robot as well at the wrist, which really helps with force controlled tasks such as finishing. We've also, to look at technology around the cobots, we recently released ActiNav, which is a bin picking solution, including active path planning. So that's something new that we've been working on and how that technology has been growing. Another key thing that Universal Robots has done is we've kind of instituted a quarterly cadence of releases of what we call Polyscope, which is the software that's on the cobot. There's brand new features that are packed into these Polyscope updates that are free of charge to all of our users out there. One nice thing that's been added recently that we can hit on is what we call active free drive. This is a pretty cool feature that allows you to, while programming the robot, lock certain axes. So you can, kind of put the robot into a SCARA mode, for example. You could lock the Z axis. You could do different things to really help in programming. So again, this was a free release that was added, but it's just another instance of how the technology has been advancing and what Universal Robots is doing to play their part in, making the user experience as seamless and as fun as possible.
Yeah, I remember sitting on a recent webinar on the ActiNav technology, and correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of emphasis is on the ease of programming, right? And having the operator actually getting it up and running right in the cell.
Yeah, exactly. So with ActiNav, I mean, it really is, you're teaching the parts, you're teaching the environment. You can load in your CAD models of whatever the part is that you're picking. And then you're teaching it where it can pick on that part to get it out of the bin, and teaching it where to place it. And then the software itself is actually creating the path between those points. So you're not having to, control this, and you're not having to determine every path that would need to be set up for this based off of where it's picking from the bin. All of that's done behind the scenes. So ease of use is definitely what it is. We've got some of our partners that have their demo units of ActiNav that'll say, once the environment is taught to the system and they teach the part, within a half an hour or so they're setting up and running an actual pick and place out of that bin, which is pretty impressive when you compare that to some of the other products on the market.
Yeah, we're getting great feedback too from systems integrators, because the product really just strips out the time and the risk associated with a bin picking application.
Yeah.
Bin picking, obviously traditionally viewed as difficult, demanding, high risk, frankly, and it has been for 20 years.
Sure.
But the ActiNav product really strips that risk out, and integrators are starting to deploy it now with confidence.
Awesome. Great to hear. All right, Joe, let's switch over to you and talk a little bit about labor. And again, from another webcast that we were on with UR, we noticed you guys were talking about 3 out of 5 manufacturers say that there's a labor and skill shortage within their own factories. Are you guys seeing that in, really remote areas in the US, or is that, across the country, or where do you guys see those trends at?
It's literally across the board. I mean, I think I've yet to meet a plant manager or manufacturing manager who's not struggling to hire. And the scary thing is, even in this pandemic era, right, and with terrible, horrific unemployment that we're suffering under, manufacturing still has a shortage, a significant shortage of skilled personnel to bring out in the manufacturing floor. And unfortunately, the unemployment that we're seeing today, that's not going to translate into skilled manufacturing workers. It's just an unfortunate fact of life. It's very much built around the demographics. And in spite of the pandemic issues that we're facing today, the demographic issues don't go away. Mm-hmm. Some of the numbers that I really like to bring people to the future with is we have 10,000 baby boomers retiring every day. And actually that number is increasing because there are many of the older manufacturing workers who are retiring maybe a year or 2 years ahead of schedule because of the environment today, right? They're high risk and they recognize that. 27% of the manufacturing workforce is 55 years or older. I mean, that means with no growth in the business, you're going to look at replacing 25 to 27% of your manufacturing workforce in the next 10 years. And the scary part is if you can't hire today, you're having difficulty hiring today, what's that going to translate into over a 10-year period? Right. And so the projections are really significant. And, I'm still talking to manufacturing people who cannot hire. And it's a place where automation can plug in and fill the gap. I think the other transition that we're seeing is there's still a lot of turnover in manufacturing from people who really don't want to do the dull, dirty, and dangerous jobs. And so I think a lot of manufacturers are waking up to the fact that they should automate those tasks, right, and allow their skilled workforce to do the higher value processes.
Yep. Do you guys have a few examples of maybe how cobots are being used today to bridge that labor gap today and moving forward as it increases?
Yeah, it's really across the board as shops large and small. But I'll give you a good example of a small shop that actually faced a kind of a double-edged sword. They were wrestling with the COVID situation, and they were struggling to figure out how to get social distancing on a floor. And we've all been in small machine shops. They're not known for having excessive floor space, right? Right. They're very compact, and the machines are compact, and that's just the way they're laid out. So what this owner did, he was a UR Cobot user, but he redeployed his cobots, right? They were very flexible, and he actually spread out his shift. He moved one shift to Saturday, and he actually started a third shift overnight that was totally unmanned, all automated. And at the end of the day, he was able to get the social distancing he wanted. His employees were comfortable coming to work because they really felt that the situation was cleaned up and was very, very good for them. And he increased production and increased bottom line productivity. Right? So it's a great story for how flexible collaborative automation can impact a business, large or small.
Got it. That's great to hear. Brian, let's go back to you. What application areas or industry trends are you seeing out there that's exciting the UR team?
There's a number of those. So just like every other robot company, I mean, Universal Robots really got their start in material handling, machine loading and unloading. Those were always the kind of the go-to applications. As of late, though, we're really starting to see a little bit of a shift in this. I mean, of course, we're still prevalent in the material handling, the packaging, palletizing, machine loading, unloading arenas, but we're moving a lot more into the process industries as of late. Those would be things like welding, like grinding, like deburring, dispensing. These are all active industry focuses for us right now that we're also seeing a number of partner companies coming up with great solutions built around the Universal Robots, collaborative robots. Those are really some exciting areas for us right now, and it's getting a lot of different types of shops to consider collaborative automation. Another big one right now is the bin picking, as we kind of hit on earlier with active path planning. That's a really big trend right now. I mean, bin picking's, pretty much always been considered the holy grail of vision, right? It's something that was always difficult to figure out, always difficult to solve. But with the ActNav solution, with that active path planning, it's really bringing the barrier to entry down quite a bit in terms of the learning aspect. Vision inspection is another good one. We're seeing more and more companies throwing, vision inspection cameras on the wrist of the robot and having the robot move around a larger part to inspect it. That's a big thing right now, and really kind of, anything with AI in general, artificial intelligence with the robots is becoming quite the hot topic as of late. And with this path planning, I mean, we've got, working with companies that are focused on, being able to scan a part and then it can create the paths for surface finishing, for example, all from, no teaching of any waypoints. You just put a part under a camera, let it scan all the surface, and even with curvature or anything else to the part, the software that they've built can actually interpolate the entire path and do the surface finishing of this product. I think they call it kind of like a scan and sand system. Which requires no programming. So it's just things like that to make the ease of use, something that, we were excited. We had such an easy to use Cobot, so easy to teach it. And there's more and more things evolving around this technology where now you can just scan a part and, and sand it. It's pretty amazing what's going on, but there's a lot of stuff in the industry that's going on right now that make this a very exciting time.
Awesome. Do you have maybe one unique example that you can share with us?
Yeah, I mean, one really good one, if we want to kind of continue on that surface finishing, is that, we've got a customer that's using these for polishing of very high gloss, very high end speakers, which is a pretty cool application to see them kind of go from kind of the raw parts to, the nice shiny black speakers that you would see in kind of those high end audio stores. So that's kind of a cool one on the finishing side.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that makes it really interesting is to watch the operator work literally side by side with the Cobot, right? So the Cobot's doing the first two primary passes, and then the operator's putting on the final buffing, the final finish, the most skilled part. It's a great example where you've taken the operator out of the dull and dirty piece of the process and let the operator focus on the very high skilled end of the process.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. The other nice thing with that is that, you get a very consistent finish when you're doing this with a Cobot. That's one of the keys and one of the main reasons they wanted to do it. If you hand, a buffing tool to 5 different people, they're all going to apply a little bit different force to it. They're all going to, maybe go in a little different pattern as they go across. You're going to get a very consistent finish when you do this with a Cobot, because it will follow the same path with the same amount of force in the Z direction at all times. So and keep that in mind from a buffing and polishing standpoint or a sanding standpoint, or really becomes a great way to automate something to get consistent results.
Sure. Yeah, you mentioned vision inspection. I'll share my screen really quickly here.
You guys have a good application.
Absolutely. Yep. This is a vision inspection system we just implemented with a customer. This is a front fascia of an autonomous vehicle. You can imagine the demand for these is just skyrocketing over the next 5 to 10 years. But these 2 URs are doing, I think, just under 60 unique inspection points, doing absence presence checking. And you can just imagine the amount of different sensors and electrical components that are going to be needed on different parts of a car moving forward for autonomous vehicles to move safely. So really, really cool application that we're excited about here.
Yeah,
well, I think the other trend we're seeing is we're seeing a lot of our cobots being deployed into metrology applications, where they're actually manipulating either a complex sensor head over a complex part, or in the case of one UR Plus partner, Uscale, they actually have a servo-driven, ultra-high precision, high-resolution gripper. So this is a part that actually can grip and do ID and OD measurement checks within the process. So I think that's an emerging trend as well.
Yeah, lots of exciting application areas out there, especially as technology continues to improve. So Okay, Joe, we'll turn it over to you for one of the last ones here. What do you think an American factory looks like over the next few years, and maybe thinking longer term, 10, 15 years?
Yeah.
Is it drastically different, or how does automation play a role there?
I think it's going to be dramatically different. So first of all, I think we have this labor issue that's going to be with us for quite a while.
Okay.
And automation is going to be a large part of the solution there. It's not the only part of the solution, because we still have to make manufacturing more attractive to our young people. I don't care whatever generation label you want to put on it. Younger generations do not want to go into a traditional factory role.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just very clear. So I think the long-term play, we're going to see a tremendous amount of automation attacking the dull, dirty, and dangerous tasks. And I think our workforce in the factories are going to be playing a much higher value, higher level role. It's going to require significantly more training and skill set, but that is certainly achievable. I think the other point about collaborative technology is that traditional automation is what I call all or nothing proposition. If you have a 10-step process in the traditional attack, you have to automate all 10 steps,
Mm-hmm.
or the project won't justify. But with collaborative technology, it's very incremental. So if you have a 10-step process, you can pick the steps in that process that are the most difficult, the highest quality problems, or the worst conditions for your team, and automate those one at a time. And I think that is going to sweep through manufacturing. I think the second big trend we're going to see is that manufacturing automation on the whole is going to come to the small and medium enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing it today. We see it every day. I know Brian does, because we talk about it.
Absolutely.
We're selling to people that in my 40-year career in traditional automation, I never would have made a sales call on, because they were too small, and they didn't have the team, they didn't have the expertise, and they couldn't afford it. But today, those are very solid customers for us, and they're gobbling up automation as fast as they learn about it. I think if you project out 10 years, you're going to see wave after wave of automation in the small and medium enterprise.
Got it.
I would agree. I mean, well over half of the things I'm doing are with companies that probably have less than 50 people employed.
Interesting.
It's amazing to see these guys being able to take advantage of this type of technology, really reduce the barriers to entry for these small to medium-sized companies, and let them kind of get a taste of what automation can do to their bottom line.
Yep.
90% of the manufacturing businesses in the U.S. have less than 100 employees. Right, so it's a huge market, and it's just going to continue to grow.
I think that's almost 250,000 companies too, right? Then
Mm-hmm.
Think about 90% of those being
small,
under 100 people. That's the majority of the American manufacturing right there.
Yeah, it's good to see the trend moving that way, and hopefully that'll allow them to stay competitive in the long term, though.
Absolutely.
Well, I think the other trend that we see is we'll put a plug in for you guys, right? We're seeing skilled integrators who are figuring out how to solve that model.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You can't take a traditional approach to these incremental collaborative projects. So we're seeing good integrators solve that equation, and they're going to be a big part of the solution, because as many people as we meet that can do it yourself,
mm-hmm.
in many cases, it's not the best business decision to do it yourself.
Sure.
Right? They're far better off to bring in a skilled integrator and get that project done.
Yep. Start realizing that ROI immediately.
Yep. Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, I think that's a wrap. Can't thank you guys enough for your time, Brian and Joe. I'm sure we'll be having discussions similar to this very soon. So thanks again.
Thank you,
Absolutely.
Brian. Appreciate
Thanks for
it a
having
lot.
us.
All right.
Take care.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks,
Adios.
everyone. Bye.